My name is Jessica Hayes. I am 30 years old. And the day I buried my husband was the day everything changed. The sky above us was dark, heavy, like it was carrying the same weight I had inside my chest. Cold wind brushed past my face, but I barely felt it. People stood around, dressed in black, whispering softly, like I wasn't even there. I stood near the grave, holding my 6-year-old son's hand. His fingers were small, warm, and trembling. The priest was speaking, words about peace, about goodbye, about endings, but none of it reached me. Because just a few days ago, my husband was alive. He was sitting next to me, smiling, laughing, holding our son in his arms. And now, I was watching them lower him into the ground. My grip on my son's hand tightened. He looked up at me, confused, his innocent eyes searching for answers I didn't have. "Mom," he whispered softly, "why are they putting Dad down there?" My heart shattered, all over again. I slowly knelt in front of him, pulling him into my arms. "Dad is just resting," I said quietly. The words felt like knives in my own chest. "I want him to come home," he said. For a moment, I almost broke. Tears rushed to my eyes, but I forced them back. I had to stay strong. I was all he had now. The sound of dirt hitting the coffin echoed in the air. Each thud felt final, permanent, like something inside me was being buried too. When it was over, people slowly started leaving, one by one. Some came to me offering sympathy. "Stay strong. He's in a better place." Empty words. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Then my eyes shifted toward my in-laws. They stood at a distance, watching, not grieving, just watching. My mother-in-law wiped her tears now and then, but something about it felt forced, fake. My father-in-law stood still, no emotion, no sadness, just cold. And in that moment, a quiet thought crossed my mind. They never accepted me, not from the beginning. No matter how much I tried, it was never enough. And my son, they never truly accepted him either. A strange fear settled deep inside my chest. How am I going to live with them now? The drive back home was silent. No one spoke, not a single word. The air inside the car felt heavy, suffocating. My son sat beside me, quietly holding my hand. His head rested against my arm, like he was afraid I might disappear too. When we reached the house, the gates slowly opened. We stepped inside together, relatives, guests, my in-laws. The moment we entered the living room, everything went quiet. People were already there, sitting, watching, waiting. And as soon as I walked in, all eyes turned toward me. That same uncomfortable feeling returned. I glanced at my in-laws. They walked ahead, calm, emotionless, like nothing had happened. No tears, no pain, just cold faces. I told myself to ignore it. Not now, just get through this. My son slowly let go of my hand and looked around the room. Then his eyes stopped on a photo. It was his father's picture, placed on a table surrounded by flowers. He slowly walked toward it. I didn't stop him. He stood there quietly, staring at the picture. Then he reached out and picked it up. "Dad," he whispered. My chest tightened again. But before I could move, the frame slipped from his hands. Crash! The glass shattered across the floor. The sound echoed through the entire room. Everything froze. My son stepped back, scared, his small body shaking. I'm sorry," he said softly. And then, slap! The sound cut through the silence like a blade. My son's face turned to the side. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Slowly, I looked up, and there she was, my mother-in-law, standing in front of him, her face filled with anger. My son held his cheek, tears streaming down his face. The room was silent. No one moved, no one spoke. Something inside me snapped. I rushed forward and pulled him into my arms. "It's okay," I whispered, even though my own voice was shaking. I looked at his face. That red mark on his cheek burned into my heart. Slowly, I lifted my eyes and looked at her. "Why did you slap him?" I asked. My voice was low, but trembling. "He's just a child." She didn't hesitate, didn't look guilty, didn't even blink. "He's garbage," she said coldly. For a moment, I thought I heard wrong. "What?" I whispered. "He ruined my son's life," she continued, her voice sharp. My arms tightened around my child. "How can you say that?" I said, my voice breaking. "He's your grandson." Before she could reply, another voice spoke. "She's right." I turned. My sister-in-law stepped forward, arms crossed, a smirk on her face. "You brought nothing but bad luck into this house." My heart sank deeper. "I always knew this would happen. The moment you walked in, everything started falling apart." Tears rolled down my face. "I trusted you," I said quietly. "I thought you were my family." She laughed, cold, mocking. "Family? Don't insult that word." The room filled with whispers, people watching, judging, enjoying. And then my father-in-law stepped forward. The room went silent again. "We made a mistake," he said calmly, "bringing you into this house." Each word felt like a knife. "We cannot accept a middle-class woman in our family." Soft laughter spread across the room. I stood there, frozen, humiliated, holding my crying son. "Mom, I'm sorry," he whispered. That broke me. "No, it's not your fault," I said quickly, tears falling uncontrollably. But they didn't stop. The insults continued. "You were never one of us. You and your son are a burden." Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. No one defended me. No one helped us. They just watched. And slowly, the pain inside me began to change into something colder, something stronger. I wiped my tears, slowly. Then I looked at them again, this time without fear. "Are you done?" I asked quietly. They stopped, surprised. My mother-in-law stepped forward. "Pack your bags, get out of this house." My father-in-law added coldly, "There's no place for beggars here." Silence filled the room again. I looked around, at every face, every person who stood there watching my humiliation. Then I looked at my son, still holding me tightly, still crying. I took a deep breath. "Fine," I said calmly. For a second, they looked confused. Maybe they expected me to beg, to cry, to fight. But I didn't. Instead, I slowly reached into my pocket, took out my phone, and dialed a number. The room went silent again. I placed the phone against my ear. "Hello," I said softly. Pause. "I need you to come." Another pause. "It's time." I ended the call and looked up at them again. This time, there were no tears in my eyes, only something they didn't understand yet. And within the next 2 hours, everything was about to change. The room stayed silent, too silent. Everyone was still staring at me, confused, irritated, some even amused. My mother-in-law crossed her arms, her voice sharp and cold. "Who did you call?" I didn't answer. I just stood there, holding my son close, gently running my hand over his hair, trying to calm his shaking body. Whispers slowly started again. Maybe she called someone for help. Who would even come for her? A few people laughed under their breath. My father-in-law shook his head in annoyance. "This is pointless," he said. "Just pack your things and leave." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just waited. Time passed slowly. Every second stretched longer than the last. 1 hour, then another. The tension in the room began to shift. Now they were getting uncomfortable. My mother-in-law sighed loudly. "This drama is getting boring," she said. And just then, the main door opened. Every head turned at once. 2 men walked in. One of them held a thick file in his hand. The other looked calm, serious, professional. They didn't greet anyone, didn't hesitate. They walked straight into the center of the room. My father-in-law stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Who are you?" The man with the file looked at him calmly. "We are here regarding Mr. Adrian Hayes' will." Silence. Instant, heavy silence. My in-laws exchanged quick glances. "We already know everything," my father-in-law said confidently. The man nodded slightly. "I suggest you listen carefully." Something in his tone made the entire room uneasy. He opened the file and began reading. According to the legal will, his voice was steady, clear. "All movable and immovable assets." My mother-in-law frowned. "All business ownership." My sister-in-law's confident expression started to fade. "All financial accounts." He paused, then finished. "Have been transferred entirely to his son." Silence. Complete silence. For a moment, no one reacted, like their minds refused to understand what they just heard. Then suddenly, "What?" my father-in-law snapped. "That's impossible." "There must be some mistake," my sister-in-law added quickly. My mother-in-law stepped forward. "When was this weighed?" she demanded. The man calmly flipped a page. 1 month before his death. Their faces changed. Confusion, shock, fear. "We didn't know about this," my father-in-law said, his voice no longer steady. "That's because it was kept confidential," the man replied. Slowly, my mother-in-law turned toward me, her eyes searching my face. "You knew about this?" she asked, her voice slightly shaking now. I took a small step forward. "Yes," I said quietly. The room froze again. Tears filled my eyes, but this time I didn't look weak. I looked straight at them. "Your son knew everything." Their expressions tightened. "He knew how you were stealing money from his business." Silence. "He knew how you were secretly giving it to your other children." My sister-in-law's face went pale. "He knew you didn't love him." My voice cracked slightly. "You only loved his money." No one spoke. No one moved. "And he knew," I glanced down at my son, "if something ever happened to him," my voice softened, "you would do exactly what you did today." Tears rolled down my face, but I didn't stop. "So, he protected us. 1 month before his death, he transferred everything to his son." I placed my hand gently on my child's head. "And made me his legal guardian." The truth settled in the room like a storm, heavy, unavoidable. My mother-in-law took a step back. "No," she whispered, "this can't be." My father-in-law looked completely shaken. "You're lying," he said, but his voice was weak. I slowly shook my head. Then I looked directly at her, the same woman who slapped my child, and I said calmly, "You just slapped the owner. Those words hit harder than anything before. No one laughed now, no whispers, just silence. My mother-in-law's face turned pale. My sister-in-law looked down, unable to speak. My father-in-law stood frozen. And then everything changed. "Wait, we didn't mean it like that. You misunderstood. We were just upset." Their voices shifted from arrogance to desperation. They stepped closer, begging, apologizing. But I didn't move. I didn't react. I just held my son's hand. The same child they called garbage. The same child they slapped. I looked at them one last time and spoke quietly. "Now," I paused, then finished. "Leave." Silence. No anger, no shouting, just one word. But this time, they had no power left. Days passed. Everything was handled legally. The house, the business, every account. Everything was transferred. They were gone. Just like that. And for the first time, that house felt different. Peaceful. Safe. I sat beside my son, holding him close, his small fingers wrapped around mine again, but this time, they weren't trembling. "You're safe now," I whispered softly. He looked up at me, still innocent, still pure, and slowly I smiled, because now no one could ever hurt him again. They called him garbage, but they never knew he owned everything.